There's a lot of uncertainty in the supply chains at the moment. Well, certainly we've seen volatility happen in different guises, and this time's no different. However, while history might rhyme, it certainly doesn't repeat itself, and what we're seeing this time around is that the supply chain impacts are being felt much more from a physical perspective rather than during COVID, where the world shut down and you had both a supply and demand impact. What we're seeing customers do, however, is react in a similar fashion that they did to COVID and previous crises, which is to focus on continuity. How are they going to stabilize the supply chain? They're working very quickly with their suppliers, their logistics partners, and importantly also government and financial partners to understand how can they deploy liquidity where it's best needed, how do they identify where the critical componentry is coming from, and how do they can make sure that continuity of supply resumes. The next aspect is contingency. If continuity is not working, and we're seeing that certainly in certain parts of the more critical areas of supply chains, then they're looking at contingency measures. Again, COVID was a great lesson to understand the value of diversification, but unfortunately, after COVID, there was obviously the continued pressure in a normalized environment to reduce costs, and that moved again from that just-in-case to a just-in-time environment. So while I would like to say that our supply chains are resilient and that we've learned a lot through the COVID crisis, unfortunately we're finding that this situation is playing out and actually exposing some vulnerabilities that were not contemplated during that COVID period. In particularly when you think about the fertilizer and the agri sector in Australia. We put out a research note as a bank, and we see some real clear vulnerabilities about getting those input costs into the farmers' hands and how costly that could be to actually deliver the harvest this year. So contingency arrangements about finding alternative means to get that supply accelerated into markets like Australia is definitely being deployed at the moment, and we're seeing those scenario plans rapidly being developed at the Treasury, the procurement, and the manufacturing operations level to understand how they can coordinate and to get this supply in and critical componentry activated. The last area I'll talk about is liquidity. All this doesn't materialize without ensuring that you have the ability to deploy cash flow where you need it most. And certainly in an environment, again, where we've been looking at liquidity being maximized to its potential return in a normalized environment, we're seeing that the treasurers and the CFOs are now trying to understand if I have to build inventory to make sure that my procurement head or my manufacturing operations department can get the critical componentry they need to manufacture and not have a disruption. That means I'm going to have to now utilize the balance sheet, hold more working capital, and that's obviously going to have return impacts, and essentially where am I going to find the financial resources to make that happen. So we're seeing that the CFO and the procurement and the manufacturing offices have to work very closely aligned together in this environment to ensure that that balance is happening at the right level.